Administrative Committee for the Bossier Parish School Board for February 1st. And our agenda today, we have one set of agenda items, which are policy updates, approval of revisions of policies for the administrative records, donations and gifts, use of automated external defibrillator and cardiac emergency plan, probation, parent conferences, student health services is recommended by Forethought Consulting and Council. Presented by Ms. Andrea Spinney, Assistant Superintendent of Administration.
Good afternoon. Ooh, testing. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming today to go over these. I'm presenting for your approval some policy updates. All 6 of these today will be revisions. None of these are new policies. 5 of the 6 are as a result of the 2023 legislative session, and then 1 is just a policy update we needed to do from a much earlier legislative session. So for the administrative records, that first one, that would be file CG. We're changing some wording from like working hours to normal business hours. We do have a section that talks about now the person has to be above the age of majority to request records, and there was also a section added for the disposal of records and the duplication of records and those processes, and that's based on Act 247 that was recently passed in the legislative session. Does anyone have any questions on that one? The next one is donations and gifts, file DFG. This one we listed that the implementation date would be to be determined. This is asking for to be publicly posted on our district website, the donations and gifts to individual schools, and we're working through technology and finance to figure out how we're going to implement that, what that's going to look like on our district website, and how we're going to collect all that information. So Ms. Bamberg, across the state, everyone's scratching their head right now, and Ms. Bamberg is going to be working with other state CFOs and to determine how we're going to be able to implement that. So we are going to go ahead and put that policy into effect, but how that is going to pan out, we just don't have our specific steps just yet on that. The next one about the AEDs and cardiac emergency plans. So we do already have those in all of the elementary schools. So that was already taken care of, but this is asking that we have a cardiac emergency response plan, including in our elementary schools, that plan put in place with the principal and local emergency responders. So that has already been established for middle and high schools. So at the elementary level, we're going to work collectively as a district to get that plan put in place for the elementary schools. Like I said, they already have their AEDs and they already have trained staff to utilize the AEDs. This is just asking that we get that emergency plan in place. And so we'll get that taken care of. The law states it does not go into effect until next school year, but I'm confident in the next month or 2 we'll be able to get that taken care of and already put in place in our schools even earlier. And that was file EBBH. So the next revision is under our probation policy, that's file GBG. And so this was the one that goes back to the 2012 legislative session, and this simply states that any employees that are not teachers or bus drivers, so that would be food service, maintenance, school nurses, clericals, paras, all of the other groups besides those, that the superintendent has the full authority without bringing a recommendation to the board to determine employment. And so it was stated before that the school board, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, and we struck through that, and this will just be that the superintendent has those powers, and those employees other than teachers and bus operators shall not be entitled to a hearing before the board. So that was already taking place. We're just updating our policy to reflect that 2012 legislature. I think there may have been a little confusion on that, so if there's any questions, I can try to clarify that. Okay, the next one is parent conferences. That's file IHAD. A couple of little changes in that. We changed the terminology pupil to student, no longer using the terminology of, there was one other one. Instead of guardian, we're using legal guardian. And so this is just going through how we require parent conferences, how many require, and then those academic statuses that certain students have that would require a parent conference set up by the school, whether the parent attends or not. It's mainly a wordage change. Okay, and then the last one is Student Health Services, file JGC. And so this is talking about in the bottom of that policy, dyslexia screeners. So the LDOE is going to be providing a specific screener that they want us to administer to our students in the second half of kindergarten. They've not yet determined what that screener is going to be. When they tell us what it has to be, they will be providing that for us. And in the past, it was that if anybody on the school setting requested a student be screened for dyslexia, so that could have been the nurse, the classroom teacher, a PE teacher, a para, a principal, that screening had to take place. Now we struck through the majority of those positions, and that screening will take place upon the request of only either the teacher or the legal guardian. So that just kind of eliminates some of the positions that are qualified to request a dyslexia screener, and that would be to take place the second half of the kindergarten year. Ms. Poole.
Miss Spinney, back in the old days, we used to send them to, what did we send them? No, for dyslexia, we would always send them to the Scottish Rite. I'm sorry. Scottish Rite. So do we have something in all the schools now? I'm sorry. Do we have something in all of the schools now? People that are trained to work with these kids?
No, ma'am. We have a multisensory mode of instruction, which is something that it helps students that have dyslexia characteristics. Of course, in the school system level, we don't diagnose a student with dyslexia. We simply complete a checklist or a screener and it says they have characteristics of dyslexia. That's technically a medical diagnosis. So, and Mr. Bates may want to speak more to this on the curriculum side. We sometimes refer outside services like the Scottish Rites program, but we don't ever recommend that because we don't want our system to be liable for those services. So there are options outside, but certified dyslexia specialists inside the school system, we do not.
So we do not?
We have instructional tools that assist dyslexic students.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that.
Anything else I can think of? Okay. All right, Ms. Poole, that concludes my presentation.
Okay. A motion that,
I'll make a motion that we accept these.
okay. Motion by Ms. Brotherton and second by Mr. Faulting. Ready? What do I do next? Vote?
We got to vote.
Okay, everybody votes. This is my first time. Everybody vote? Okay, so passes. Out of committee.
And you tap dance for the remainder
Now,
of the
is that, so this is it, right?
So meeting is adjourned.
So now you just tell us the meeting's adjourned.
Okay, so we adjourn?
Yep.
That's it.